Welcome, everyone, to Life Beyond 6 Feet. I'm Damien from RKB Paranormal, and this week I have a very special guest. I have Miss Paige Dalton from History Haunts and Hotels. Paige, welcome to Life Beyond 6 Feet.
Thanks, Damien. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Is this your first podcast interview?
This is not my first podcast interview, but it's so fun to collaborate with other people who are into the paranormal because it makes me feel like less crazy, I guess. It's like we can just sit around and just talk about ghosts and we get it.
Absolutely. So what kind of got you into the paranormal? I know you mentioned before we started recording that you're a social studies teacher. So how did you kind of get into the paranormal?
Yeah, so I've been into the paranormal really since I was little. I just remember having a little bit more, I guess, what you would call like a sixth sense as a kid, and that really came through in a lot of ways and pretty strong sometimes. To the point where like I don't even think I recognized what it was really. Like it took me until adulthood to be like, oh, okay, I think, there was some breaching of the realms or however you want to put it. I'd have a few incidences as a kid where I would either see like shadows or I would hear voices. I would hear like for me, it's a lot of audio, and
Hmm.
so I hear hear a lot of voices in my head. But that's a different story. I've experienced that since I was little, and I think as a kid, like for me, I believe that we all have, this intuition on like a spectrum.
Hmm.
And I think that I was really in tune when I was a kid, as I think a lot of children are when they're, developing still. Um, and so, just having some experiences, like I thought I saw my grandma after she died. I thought I saw my uncle. I would see shadows. Um, and then there was really like one incident, I would say. I was living in Texas and I was probably in middle school, probably like eighth grade. And I was living in Texas. And in Texas, it's just suburban sprawl. And so we lived in a brand new neighborhood, not an old neighborhood by any means, a completely new development, new house. So you wouldn't think anything like paranormal is really going to happen there, but I was looking out my window and facing my house was what was called a model home, which was what they would show, people
Hmm.
who were prospective buyers. And there's nobody in the model home. It's nighttime. But there's some lights on in the model house, and like I'm seeing it clear as day. And what I'm seeing is about like 8 to 10 different like silhouettes, shadows just jumping all over this house. And like, so like trying to piece it together, like you always, like as a paranormal investigator, right? Like your brain just tries to piece it together. It doesn't really make sense, right? Like when
Hmm.
that happens. And so I
Hmm.
was trying to piece it together, like, okay, those could be kids over there, right? Like I could have go break into that house and have fun too, like jumping on the beds and stuff. But they weren't moving like humans the more that I watched them, and it was just shadows and like slinky forms. And then like I went to go get my mom to show her, and I came back and it had stopped. And so that to me, that one sticks out. Like that was probably my first paranormal experience. I was like, I have no freaking explanation. That was not in my imagination. I sat and I watched it. Um, and then God, I mean, there's just so many stories. When I was in high school, I saw a UFO in Texas.
Oh, wow.
Clear as day, saw it with a bunch of friends, not a bunch of friends, but about three or four of their friends, and we chased it.
Oh,
Like, I mean, we could still talk about it to this day. It's like we have no idea. And you look at the videos of UFOs, and it's just, these bright orb light that are changing colors and they're just flipping all over the sky, and it just doesn't make any sense. And so um I really got turned on to all of this stuff really from a young age. And then
right.
when, I think my mom and I really started watching all like the paranormal shows, because when I was growing up, it was like, all the original like
Right.
Ghost Hunters and Most Haunted and Ghost Adventures and stuff. And so started watching all of that. And then I, I took kind of a break from the paranormal, I guess. And I married somebody that really didn't believe in any of it and would kind
Hmm.
of just like laugh at it. And so
Right.
I kind of like tampered it down a little bit. And then now I've been divorced for about almost 4 years, and like I feel like it's just coming back, right? Like
Right.
it's, oh, this is I feel like and a lot of other things have happened too. Like my dad has passed, and so he like visits me, and so I'm
Right.
just wanting to kind of get back into all of it.
Right. And that's where I got kind of lucky with my wife. That was one of our common interests. And
Nice.
so now, she's actually a part of the team. And so every investigation, most of the investigations we go on, she's right there with me. So it's something we get to share together, and it's really fun.
That's
Now,
so nice.
now you mentioned your mom and stuff. So you didn't come from one of those homes where like ghosts don't exist, you can't talk about it, it's not existent. So
Right.
which
No,
which is which is really uncommon in a way, because a lot of people I've talked to, that was always kind of taboo in their house, because they were like, we were religious, that stuff didn't exist, I couldn't talk about it. And so you got kind of, I guess, lucky on that aspect. That's kind of how I was. Like, we would talk about it, but like at the same time not talk about it. Like, we couldn't not talk about it. But
gotcha.
so yeah, that's and it's really, interesting that your mom would watch those shows and stuff with you. Now, has she ever been anywhere with you?
Um, we're no, actually, I don't think so. I need to take her to a few places. But I don't think that she has. But my mom, I feel like my mom has a little bit of a like a sixth sense, and like
Hmm.
she's always believed in this stuff. I don't know about my dad so much, maybe. He was actually pretty religious, but also kind of like that this whole spirituality thing kind
Hmm.
of like seeped into the earth side of things for him, I guess.
Right.
And so yeah, I think they were both really understanding about it. My mom, I do. I think she's got a little bit of a sixth sense. My dad visits her and tucks her into bed, and like, she'll be like, I think I felt him again. And I'm like, I'm sure you did,
Right.
like I have two brothers though that like don't believe in this stuff at all. If I start talking about it, like they'll be like, oh, whatever,
Yeah.
laugh at it, just like the ex-husband was. And so it's tricky. It's tricky because it's like I don't ever want to impose it on anybody, but at
Hmm.
the same time, like, you hope that people like kind of respect your experiences, but at the same time,
Right.
all it takes is one experience for somebody to believe.
Right. And that's what I tell a lot of people that kind of question some of it. I'm like, I'll show them something. I was like, now explain that to me. I
Right?
was like, this happened right in front of me. How do you explain this? So, and sometimes they just like, well, and they don't know what to say. So
Exactly.
now, obviously, you said you're a social studies teacher, so you're real big in the history and stuff like that. So, what kind of drew you more to the hotels as like your main interest of these locations?
Yeah, great question. Well, I think living in Chicago, I haven't always lived in Chicago. I've only been here about 8 years, and so the history of Chicago,
Hmm.
it's fascinating,
Right.
and it's just um so traveling, teaching about all of these things to my eighth grade students, like the Gilded Age, it's been really cool to be like, okay, but also I'm going to a hotel that was built during the Gilded Age, right? And like I'll take pictures and then can
Hmm.
show them, like, just look at the opulence, right?
Hmm.
Look at this. Everything is gold plated, and just for me, like hotels are, I mean, the stories they can tell, right? Like they're
Right.
just innumerable that I think, I believe so much in energy. And I think that buildings have energy, and what better place that has a ton of energy than that's lived 1,000 lifetimes,
Hmm.
as a hotel has. And
Right.
so Just for me, I've always been fascinated with history. It just goes hand in hand with the paranormal, obviously. Um, and so for me, just the history of it and just seeing how spirituality plays into it and seeing how I can tap into that. And also, I think just having a little bit of the knowledge going into it about the history, the historical um, information, it just like helps me communicate a little bit better, I think. So,
Right. And like you said, a hotel, that those places, especially a large, well-known hotel, sees so many people in just a week,
right.
and you have everything from happiness happening there to sadness to tragedy to and it can just hold so much. And so what was like, I know you said you do investigate from time to time. So like what was the very first place you investigated?
Um, well, let's see. As of late, and this is again just me going on my own, but again, if whether or not you want to call it an investigation or not, I don't take equipment, I don't take tools. I need to. I'm starting to try to like get into it. That's why I love like these your guys' like formal groups, right? Because I'm always like, oh, what's that equipment? What are the like
Right.
one of the things is it's like it's great to do all of this solo, but then when you find something, it's like you just want to share it with people, right?
Right.
Like when you have something happen to you, that's what's such a bummer. And so recently my first one that I did on my own when I was really getting back into this was a bed and breakfast called Brumder Mansion in Milwaukee. And it's supposed to be one of the most haunted places in Milwaukee. It's just this beautiful, or in Wisconsin, and it's just this cute little quaint little cottage. And it has it had an old speakeasy in the basement. But I went there and it was I had like a couple things happen to me at night, but just like the touching of the hair, like those
Hmm.
kinds of things. And again, if I'm not recording and I don't have the equipment, it's kind of like but but then the next day I was with the owner. He was giving me a tour of like the what he called like the catacombs in the basement and like the original bars there. It was really cool. And so we were taking a tour of that and I was kind of bummed like nothing had happened, but again it was just cool to be there for the history of it and talk with the owner about his experiences. And so I was kind of bummed that nothing had happened. And as I leave him to go check out and I go up to the third floor to my bedroom, and as I'm walking up to the third floor, like I see a shadow pass right in front of me, like about half size pass in front of me, go through the wall. And like as my brain's trying to process it, I turn around the corner. I was like, I'm thinking like, what the fuck was that? Sorry, what was that? And then all of a sudden I hear some like a man's voice just say, hey, and like nobody's there. So it was like a shadow and then somebody saying, hey. And after that, I was just like, I mean, I was shaking the whole drive back to Chicago. I was shaking, but I couldn't wait to go back. I was like, I gotta go to other places.
Right. Yeah, that's always fun to experience that, even if it does kind of spook you a little bit. Once that initial shock kind of dies down, you're like, holy shit, that just happened.
Right, right.
And
So
so,
since then, it's just yeah, in some hotels I go to and nothing, and then others are just full of energy or experiences, and so um, I really just like to research the history, like where did I've been to hotels that are built on hotels that have burned down, or like
mhm.
the Congress Plaza Hotel in downtown Chicago is where H. Holmes would hang out in the lobby to
Oh,
stake out
wow.
his victims and take them to his murder castle. And
Mm,
so I try to do like light research before I go to the hotel, and then like I'll do more serious research after the fact once
mhm.
I kind of get a little bit more of a feel. Um but for me it's just that history, there's just so many stories and
Right.
like you said,
Yeah,
tragedies.
right. Now, do you ever go to one kind of go in blind and like not really know anything about it, and then if you experience something, kind of go back and do some research and see if it kind of adds up to what you experience?
Yes, exactly, exactly. So, um, especially if there's just like a weird feeling on a floor or something like that, where I can just pick up on that and then like I'll go back and be like, okay, what happened on like the eighth floor or something,
Right.
I know there's just countless stories. So it's on a lot of the hotels I go to. Some of the hotels don't have many, but
Mm-hmm.
again, these Chicago hotels have a lot of
Thinking
stories.
say I was thinking say Chicago as a whole, I imagine is very haunted.
Oh,
As old as it is, and as much stuff that's happened there, and
right.
so
Yeah. And like, even the St. Valentine's Day massacre downtown Chicago, I've
hmm
just driven past that. I'd love to get out and really, because they've torn down everything, where they shot the mafia guys. But
hmm
but just yeah, there's just so much. Even Lincoln Park Zoo, going down to the zoo. I take my kids to the zoo all the time. People don't know there are probably about 10,000 corpses still underneath the Lincoln
I was
Park
thinking say
Zoo.
I think I've heard that that zoo's pretty haunted. So
It's haunted, and it's
eh,
like you don't realize it
yeah,
unless you
you
look it
like
up.
right. You don't ever think about like a zoo being haunted or
Right.
something like that. So
Yeah, they just buried all of the city, underneath
right
the zoo in the 1800s. So
now, so you say you visit a lot of these hotels. Now, do you actually stay in all these hotels, or you just kind of go in and just check it out for a little bit and then go on about your way?
oh, I stay. I gotta stay. That's my favorite part.
Right. Kind of
Yeah.
just kind of a a minute to get away from reality for a whole minute. You got to do that sometimes.
Well, and it's like, I love traveling and it's just kind
Right.
of that cheap, easy way to travel. You know what I mean? Like go
Right.
experience, like, oh, I'm staying at the Drake in Chicago, but it's like one night. You know what I mean? And
Right.
like going out for tea, but it's just there, it's a fun experience for me. And yeah, like I like to stay overnight. When I go, I always ask like I from the get-go, I whoever if it's online or I call them and I say I want like the most paranormal, like wherever you get the most paranormal reports, and a lot of people
Right.
are like, what are you talking about? And then other people are like, I know the perfect room for you. So,
Right.
so try to get the spookiest rooms.
I hear that. So now you say you don't really have much equipment and stuff like that, or any equipment at all, and you don't really have to have much equipment. You have all you really need is a couple of good recorders and a couple of good cameras that's got night vision. That's really all you need, unless you're one of those that's really fascinated by the beeps and the bright lights and stuff lighting up and stuff. You don't really need much equipment, especially if you're more or less just focused in one room.
Right.
Now, like if you happen to go somewhere and you're like, hey, I want to rent out this entire floor, then it'd probably be nice to have some different gadgets and stuff. But that's something that people's asked me before. Well, what do you need to actually do this? And I'm like, you don't really need a lot,
Yeah.
and especially like doing a lot of this on your own, get you a
Mhm.
couple of good cameras and a couple of good recorders, and you,
Yeah.
you have a way to document your experiences.
Right, right, exactly. And that's what I use a whole lot. Like even, I'll open up a Zoom camera and just, press play and just have it rolling, just to see if I pick up anything
Right.
just from my laptop or from my on my phone. Hey, I caught an orb, on my phone the other day. And so, yeah, I mean, do you ever use what other equipment do you use that, I mean, are you really just kind of videos and audios or?
We do like a lot of the stuff they can interact with. So we have like a ton of the little cat balls,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
um, which was something that I would have never thought of to even bring in to an investigation. When I found out about it, I was like, no way. And
I
so
know.
and so we have a ton of those, and we have our REM pod
Yeah.
and so we have some of the stuff that beeps and lights up and stuff. So
Well, that's
because it's just really weird. It's like that's one of those things. How do you explain, this device sitting in an empty room and you're clear across the building, all of a sudden this just starts going off.
right, right.
So yeah, that's we like a lot of the interaction. So
Right. And then sometimes, yeah, you can debunk it and be like, all right, there's a breeze here or something, or,
right.
but then other times it completely still and it's going off and it's just,
hmm
you have no explanation.
Right.
Those cat balls, though, that's something I could easily take with me on my solo trips.
hmm
Thank you
Like
for
I
that.
said, you could just put it there on your bed. Like if you have it on your bed,
Right.
that's going to be hard to set it off like when you're walking around because it's on that bed.
Yeah.
So that would be something good to take just as kind of a little bit of validation.
Well, exactly. And then also when the nice thing is like being solo is like nobody else is touching it, right?
Right.
Like
Right.
I don't have to worry about interference.
Right.
I did a like a I guess a proper investigation maybe, although I just showed up by myself, like, hi guys. Like it
Right.
was other like groups and I was like, and but it was at Rhodes Hotel in Indiana and we
Mm,
stayed overnight and used cat balls and like the REM pods and everything. And it's very cool for me to investigate with other people. It's still not used to it because I'm always by myself. And so
right.
it's like, like
Right.
um it's just it's cool because it's like I was listening to one other guy having like this whole experience with a spirit and it was just very neat because it's like totally different from the experience that I'm having, but
Mm,
like I totally validate his experience and whatever is going on, right? Like he is experiencing something and interacting with some, and he was getting some evidence too. So it's neat. It's I definitely like collaborating with people, but it's yeah, you have to kind of like work around. It's easier when you're by yourself because there's no
right.
interference.
Right. Now, how far have you traveled to go to some of these hotels?
Not far enough. Not far enough. That's on my. I've got a bunch on my list. To like St. Mary's and California and Stanley Hotel and all the penitentiaries. Like I would love to do all of those.
Hmm.
But I haven't yet. And so far, I'm really just been staying close to the Midwest. So I've been in Chicago, Milwaukee, Indiana, and Wisconsin. And like, honestly, I'm not running out of places yet. So
Right.
that's good. I got back from Florida. It was a little bit harder for me to find a place down in Florida. Um, and the one hotel that was near me that was supposed to be really haunted was also like not very safe, I don't think. And so sometimes
Oh,
I have to consider that when I'm on my own,
right.
is like, okay, I usually will take a buddy if I'm going to like a cemetery late at night or something.
Right. Well,
Um,
well,
so
I can tell you one good place if you're willing to do some traveling, and it's only
yeah,
Tennessee's only about because that's where I'm at. Is Tennessee is
yeah,
only about 7-8 hours from Chicago, so it's not that far.
it's doable.
There's a place down here in Red Boiling Springs, Tennessee. You may have heard of it. It's called uh shit. I just went blank on the name, and I talk about it like all the time. The Thomas
Of
the
course.
the, the Thomas House Hotel.
Thomas House Hotel.
It it's actually I think been ranked one of the most haunted places in the country.
Okay.
Um, I've been there once. It was one of those public investigations. So there was like a ton of people there, and we didn't really get to experience anything because when there's so many people, it's hard to really do anything or really experience anything. But I've talked to several people that go there a lot, and they're like, yeah, it's one of the most active places I've been to. Um, one of my real good friends, that's one of his favorite. Actually, it's his favorite location to investigate. And like I
Is it
said, you
like a small hotel or a bigger hotel?
um, it's it's not like a huge hotel like you would see in like Chicago or anything.
Sure.
It's the family that owns it. They actually live in one half of the hotel, and
Very
like the other half is what the guests get to rent. So I think in all, like what the guests get to rent, I think there's probably about 12 or 14 rooms.
Oh, okay, nice.
Um,
It's a perfect size.
and it's got quite a bit of history to it. Like if I'm not mistaken, I think the original one had like burnt down and they rebuilt, and there's another hotel right down the road from it. They say it's pretty haunted. I don't think they allow anything like that, but
Okay.
like if you just went in to stay and didn't really tell them you were doing that, and you just kind of be like, hey, I'm doing this in my room,
Right.
um, but I know a few of the different ghost shows that I've filmed there before. I know I think Portals to Hell did an episode there.
Okay.
Um, I want to say Ghost Hunters may have did an episode there, but I can't remember.
Cool.
but I know Portals to Hell did an episode there.
Okay.
So
Right up my alley.
it's kind of well known, especially down here in Tennessee. So
Sure.
um, and you say you went down to Florida and didn't have much luck with locations. Tennessee is chock full of haunted locations.
That's awesome. Yeah. Yeah.
So you wouldn't run out of locations here or anything. We got everything from prisons to
Yeah.
hospitals to hotels to
Yeah. You guys
so
do have a lot.
we do.
What's up with that? You didn't think like, I mean, I know there's a lot of history, but it's you guys have like the abandoned stuff,
Uh-huh.
right? That you don't
Right.
find so much in Chicago.
Right. And then another place I can recommend that I've been to. It's more of a bed and breakfast, but it's in Paducah, Kentucky, so it'd be a little bit closer to you. It's called the Hotel Metropolitan.
Okay.
Um, this place, um, we've done roughly 25 investigations since we became a team, and this ranks in our top five most active locations we've been to.
Oh, really?
Um,
Which,
this um, this place was built in 1908. It was built by a black lady.
Mhm.
Um, it was built specifically for African Americans because it was built during segregation and all that kind of stuff. So
Okay.
she built it specifically for black people to have a place to stay when they was traveling and stuff. And
Mhm.
so a lot of well-known musicians and athletes and stuff stayed there throughout the years. B.B. King, Ray Charles, uh, Tina Turner stayed there, I think. So a lot of well-known musicians throughout the years that stayed there. And me and my wife went up the night before our investigation. We just decided to go up a night just to have a night to ourselves and end up having the entire building to ourselves. Wasn't expecting that at all.
Oh,
The owners like, here's the keys, here's the alarm code. I'll see you in the morning. Okay.
oh, lucky. Oh,
And so I slept like a baby. My wife, she's kind of sensitive to some things. She's like, I didn't sleep very well. She goes, there was numerous times I woke up and it felt like somebody was standing in the doorway, just kind of looking at us. And
mhm.
it got to the point where she made me get out of bed and kind of pull the door shut. She's like, so I can sleep. She goes, it feels like there's somebody just watching us. And so when we actually did our investigation the next night, it was just me and her and another teammate. And one of our devices we like to use is the SLS camera.
Yeah,
And so, we're 45 minutes into our investigation. It's just kind of dead, like nothing is happening.
right.
And I'm like, man, I was like, we got to do something to kind of see if we can't get some stuff stirred up. So I was like, let's play some music. So played some music of the people that had stayed there. And as soon as we turn on one of these songs, my wife has the SLS pointed in the dining room. Two figures pop up, like immediately. A tall one and a short one. Like it was a man and a child standing there. And I kid you not, it looked like they were dancing to the music.
Oh,
And turn the music off. Right when the music turns off, they both disappear. And I'm like, okay. I was like, the SLSs are a little tricky. They can sometimes map in false negatives and stuff. I was like, let's try another song. Turn on a different song. Both pop back up, the tall one and the short one. Dancing the entire dancing the entire time, and as soon as the music's off, both disappear.
and you're watching it on the camera?
Watching it on the SLS as it's happening, and I'm like, holy shit! I was like, there was you know an adult and a child standing right there dancing to this music.
Popping up when the music comes on.
So
And
that started our night, and after after that, it was just like left and right things were happening.
wow.
Um, there was a door in the kitchen that opened twice on its own. Um, it happened twice to our other team. Had he seen it happen both times, freaked him out because that was his first investigation. He um, caught one of our clearest EVPs to date upstairs.
Ooh,
That was pretty wild. So it was
what'd they say?
so we'd set up in the hallway. I'm doing. Have you ever heard of the Estes method?
No. Mm-mm.
Well, you have your spirit box.
Mhm.
You have your headphones on. You have a blindfold on. You just kind of opening your senses up. Can't hear, can't see. So I'm sitting in the hallway, just spitting out everything that I hear come through the spirit box. You can hear in the clip, you can hear our one teammate ask, "Are you Pop?" He was actually referring to his grandfather. Um, he was just like, because he had said, sometimes, I feel like he's here with me. He just goes, "Are you Pop?" And then you hear my wife whisper, "Who's Pop?" And then actually we captured it on our video camera, like right at the camera, you hear somebody say, "That's not my name." And what was wild about that, um, right probably a minute and a half before that happened, I felt something touch me on my arm like two different times. Like the
Wow.
first time, I felt like they just kind of rubbed my arm, and then
Mhm.
just a few seconds later, I felt like they were just kind of poking me in the arm. And then just a minute later, that voice comes through,
Oh my.
and so it was. And what was crazy is we found out that next morning, because the owner had told us, because actually that door opened on me and my wife and the owner the first night,
Okay.
and she was like, "Oh, that happens quite a bit. I can't figure it out." And we tried to debunk it after she left. Tried to
Yeah.
jump up and down, pound on the wall, and wouldn't do nothing. And she had told us the following morning that some years back, a man had actually murdered his brother in that kitchen where that door kept opening.
Oh my gosh.
And so then we're like, okay, well, maybe, what if he's opening the door? What if that was him that whispered at the cat? So we just had so many questions, and it was
That's what's cool is finding out the information after, you're like, what could
right,
this possibly be? And then, oh, well, something horribly tragic happened
right.
here.
And like I said, she's open to it. You just contact the lady, say, hey, I'd like to,
Okay.
um, and he just and we paid for 2 nights, and we got to choose whatever room we slept in. Um, so it was really fun.
Okay, I'll add that one to my list because I have a list, a document of all my local places, and then I have
Right,
a list of all 50 states and like all
right,
that. So, but Tennessee is a little bit more local, so I'm
right.
it just sounds like there's so much. We'll have to maybe collaborate if I ever come in.
Oh, absolutely. Like I said, we're open to collaborating. We actually did our first investigation this past weekend with it wasn't her full team. It was just one investigator, but it's the first time we actually worked with somebody. And so we're actually looking into to working with her again here in about a month. So
Awesome.
it was really fun working with her. And now, like I said, you mentioned you're a teacher and stuff. Now, do you ever kind of talk about this stuff with your students, or you just kind of keep it kind of on the down low because you don't want to like freak them out or anything?
Yeah, they know that I'm into it. I think they just think I'm like wacky Miss Dalton. But they a lot of like some of the students are like, okay, whatever. But some of them are, interested in it. And I know that, hey, at that age, like middle school, I was 100% into it and
Right,
interested. So,
right,
you know, I think it's more than anything, I'm just trying to like I don't know, normalize it, but be like, hey, there's all of this history in our country, all of these stories. Where does all this energy go? You know what I mean? And that's not my job. My job is to teach, the history and the different
right,
perspectives and critical thinking and all everything. But for me, it's just like, I mean, this town, these cities, Tennessee, all of these places, they're just brimming with energy and
right.
stories. So I think I don't know, maybe I've normalized it a little bit, or they just think I'm a total whack job. So either way.
Now, what you talked about a few minutes ago about seeing that shadow run right across you after you went upstairs. Now has that been like probably what spooked you the most, or there's been something else at these hotels that's probably spooked you more than that?
That one for sure spooked me. You know, one of the really start and maybe you can shed some insight on this, but like one of the more startling experiences that I've had recently was using a spirit box.
Hmm.
um I never used one, and literally the first time I used it, I was at the Hilton Garden Inn in Milwaukee, which is a very haunted hotel. I was in one of the two most haunted rooms. That was a cool, like that was a crazy experience. Like I can't really say, okay, let me focus. Okay, so the spirit box. I was I was I'd never used it. And the minute I turned it on, like probably within 10-15 seconds, I hear my dad's voice clear as day.
Oh wow.
Yeah. And so, and like, um, and he just said, all I heard was like, what Paige? And like it was in his voice. And I was just like I wasn't, I mean, I hadn't even like set up yet. I was just like, oh, let me just, I just pressed
Right.
it, and I wasn't even prepared. And so that was interesting because then, so I, that really shook me because I'd never used a spirit box, and let alone I was not expecting to hear my dad's voice.
Right.
And then I had somebody, like I posted about it, and I had somebody say like a lot of times, they thought that spirits could impersonate
Hmm.
other spirits. So I don't know. It was just, that to me was just, I give those spirit boxes a lot of credit now. Because
Right.
at first I was like, I don't know if this is gonna work, and then I turned it on and I was like, whoa, there's no
Right.
denying that.
I
So
mean, I mean, it could be that, but at the same time, it could be that he's always with you, or he was with you at that point in time, and he was, just more or less letting you know that he's there. It's just one of those things that unless you just really dived deep into it, you may never really know.
yeah,
Um, I would, for your sake, I would feel more comfortable saying that it was just him looking out for you,
yeah.
and just kind of hanging out with you. So,
I
and
didn't
and
regret. So
and spirit boxes, they can be tricky at times because there's just so much happening,
it's a
and you're
lot.
and you're like trying to listen, and you may have three or four different things being said, and you're like, okay, which one do I spit out?
Right.
And like when you're doing the ask this method, like I said, you would have to have at least another person there asking the questions. But sometimes the answers that you're spitting out will line up with the questions that are being asked. Sometimes it doesn't really make sense.
Right.
Um, so it's kind of like a 50-50 shot.
Right.
But when you start getting answers to the questions that are being asked that you can't even hear being asked, that's it's like, how do you explain that? Um, like the place we went to this past weekend.
Yeah.
Um, we went to a Masonic lodge up in Kentucky,
Okay.
and the Masons, they was,
History there, right?
yeah. So they told us a little bit about who they think is haunting the place, and like there was one point when I first started it, like I could hear children talking, and
Oh,
one of the spirits there is said to be that of a little girl,
okay.
and like I started kind of twitching my knee because I was starting to get emotional. Like I was like, man, I was like, I'm hearing these kids, and I held it together, but then I started saying the little girl's name that supposedly haunts the place,
Yeah.
and they was actually talking about her when I was saying, and I pretty sure when the voice came through, when I said the name, I was like, that was the little girl's voice. Like I clarified that was the little girl's voice,
Hmm.
and so a lot of the times it'll add up, but it's just one of those things that you hope it makes sense whenever you're spitting this stuff out, because you're just spitting out whatever you hear, and you have no clue what you're talking about until you tap out and say, okay, does any of that make sense?
Right.
Um,
Right.
so and another thing we like to use that's close to a spirit box that you can download on your phone is the app called Necrophonic. Um,
That's what I use. That's what it was.
yeah,
That's what I used. That's
yeah,
all it was. Okay.
it's it's really that's what I was using that night. It's really cool too.
That's what
Um,
I was like. I just pressed play, and all of a sudden I was like, oh,
so yeah,
yeah.
it's really fun. But yeah, with hearing your dad like that, like I would say it was just validation of him just kind of being with you. Um,
Yeah.
he may not be there all the time, but if especially if you guys were close, he's probably just watching out for you.
Yeah, that's what I like to think. And I like to think he's watching out for me when I would go to these places on my own. And
Right.
yeah.
Like
So,
like we have stuff that happens at our house occasionally, and my wife seems to think sometimes it's my aunt because me and her were really close when she passed away. And she was a big supporter of the team and was real into the paranormal and stuff. And we had just started our team when she passed away.
oh wow.
Um, Actually, our first official investigation was the night of her funeral,
Hmm.
and she passed away and everything, and we already had the investigation lined up. And I
Mhm.
was like, I know she would want me to go ahead and do this, and so there will be we I kid you not. We was in here one night and my wife caught a strong smell of cigarette smoke. None of us smoke, but my aunt was a real heavy smoker. And she's like, I think your aunt may be here. And I was like, because we were hearing some stuff in our bedroom and stuff. I was like, well, let's just put this to the test. So set up my REM pod, put up my EMF detector, and started asking questions. Like questions I know, like I would ask a question and then I would give like two or three different answers. And then I would
Mhm.
say, I was like, when it gets to the correct answer, I was like, light the meter up.
Yep.
And so I asked about 12 questions, and on 11 of those questions, it lit up when it was the answer it would have been for her. Like I asked, like, what was your favorite TV show? When I said Supernatural, it lit up.
Oh, wow.
I was like, what was your favorite football team? When I said the Titans, it would light up.
Right.
So like everything I was like, am I literally sitting here having a conversation with my aunt? So that's pretty cool when you
Oh,
uh,
she's
so
answering.
it was pretty wild. So
So cool. Oh, see, I do. I think I know my dad's, I can feel him. Like I can hear him talk to me. I can hear like beyond like just like, oh, remembering what his voice sounds like. Like he'll
right,
tell me things, like he'll give me advice without me asking for it. And it's just like all of a sudden I just hear it. He's like,
right,
Paige, go do this. And I'm like, I wasn't even thinking about you. Like, leave me alone. He's tugged at things, that I've been holding laundry and I just know he like will pull on the laundry. It's just
right,
little things like that. And even like growing up, I remember, you asked like, were my parents supportive? But like even my dad, I mean, in high school, I remember one night, like clear as day. I mean, everybody was asleep, but it was probably like 11 o'clock at night and whistling like an old timey tune, right? Like I could probably whistle it back. It was clear as day. And I was like, what is my dad doing? And like I remember calling downstairs, like, why are you whistling? And he came out of the room. He was like, what are you talking about? I'm dead asleep. What are you making all this racket for? And I'm like, that wasn't you whistling. And he's just like, no. And so like I
mm,
think I mean, he knew I experienced things, but
right,
my mom and I always joke though. I'm like, if he's not by me, he's by you, tucking you in.
right.
So,
So so what's your ultimate goal like behind your Instagram page? Like what's like the ultimate goal for it?
oh, that's a great question. My ultimate goal right now is just to truly like it was almost like a very healing thing for me and very therapeutic and cathartic, right? Because this happened after my divorce. It happened when I was like dating somebody who was also into the paranormal, and I found that just very refreshing, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because after you're like laughed at for 10 years for
Right,
thinking these things, it was just like, oh. And so more than anything, I did it to kind of honor what he and I had, because we ended up breaking up. And I was like, you know what, like this paranormal thing's pretty awesome. I'm going to keep going with it.
right.
And then meeting all of you guys and just this paranormal community, um I feel like I have, everybody's got like their own little spin on it, and I just think it's so fascinating, like I love hearing about your experiences and like your personal experiences, and I love hearing about people who like, use mediumship through tarot cards. And so for me, I really enjoy the history aspect. I love sharing that history with other people because I just geek out about it. And so to me, it's just like informing people like, if you're ever in Chicago, you got to go check this out if you're into like, H.H. Holmes or something. And so
Right.
just kind of spreading the word of these really historic, but also, you can go, if you're not into the paranormal, you can go visit these beautiful hotels and
Right.
just light in the history and the stories. And if you are into the paranormal,
Right.
buckle up.
Right.
So,
So it's kind of a 3-for-1 deal.
right, history haunts
Right.
hotels.
So what's the future look like for history haunts and hotels? Do you want to do a whole lot more traveling, or do you just
Yeah.
want to kind of keep it how it is and just kind of be like, oh, I'll just do it on my own when I can do, or do you have like bigger plans in mind down the road?
I'm kind of in this life transition period right now. And so my goal for History Haunts Hotels is very open right now, but I want to expand and I want to collaborate. I want to go experience new locations with people that know things that I don't know. And and yeah, just I want to eventually get out of the Midwest and
Hmm.
start going a little bit further. And especially, like these asylums and these hospitals and the prisons, it's just these are on my bucket lists.
Right.
Again, it's just hard to so different from the solo aspect though, because then
Right.
now you're going to these huge spread out,
Right.
abandoned place with a bunch of people. So
Well,
just, meeting new people, talking with people like you, and hopefully collaborating.
like I said, we've prisons and jails have been our biggest things we've been to. So we've
Awesome.
had some of our best evidence in jails and prisons. So
I can't even imagine. I
oh
can't. I can't even imagine. Have
uh
you ever gone to one though and like not gotten anything and like were they
um
pretty disappointing?
we never really leave disappointing because we know this stuff doesn't always happen and
Right.
doesn't definitely happen when you want it to. Um, like our very first investigation the night of my aunt's funeral, that was probably the deadest night we've had as a team. And it was just one of those nights where like just nothing was happening.
Yep.
Um, the only thing I can recall, um, it felt like something pulled on the collar of the back of my shirt. But then when I
Mm-hmm.
turned around, there was a plant hanging from the ceiling. I was like, oh, maybe I bumped into that. I was like, I don't know. Um,
Right.
like it was the dead that night that me and my co-founder ended up falling asleep on the couch.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
just like nothing was happening. But out of all the locations we've done, we've only had probably two or three like really dead nights.
Yeah.
Um,
Right.
so I don't know if we just got lucky with what we've been able to capture, or if like the spirits are just like drawn to us or what. But we've captured some significant stuff pretty much everywhere we've went. And
Right.
if we didn't capture it, we have the personal experiences and stuff we know that happened, even if we weren't able to capture it. So
Right.
I mean, like we've seen in one of the jails we captured a picture flying off the wall. Um we went into a location. It was an old post office. Three of us got scratched on the neck.
No
Um
way. Oh, I've always wanted that to happen.
I got scratched. I was locked in a vault by myself, nobody in there, and I walked out with three scratches on the back of my neck.
Could you feel them when they happened?
I felt my neck burning. Like
Oh my
I was
God.
like, man, my neck is burning. And then when they let me out, I was like, my neck's burning. And when they looked at my neck, there was three. They weren't big ones, just three little tiny scratches down the back, like in the middle of my neck.
Oh, that's
So, but
oh
yeah, it's really fun to go to all these different locations and expand into the looking into hotel or not hotels. You already do hotels into prisons and hospitals and because they're all active. So.
oh yeah. Yeah,
So
exactly. And that's yeah. I have to get to some, so I'm adding these ones to my Tennessee list for sure.
so
It's so funny. I haven't gone to location in probably like a month just because of, that's why I was like, I wanted to go to somewhere in Florida. So I've been doing like a lot of cemeteries, which I love,
mhm,
but you get the itch, like I'm like,
yes,
oh, I need to, I need to get back out.
right. So if people want to find you, you're on Instagram at History Haunts and Hotels. Are you on any other social media right now?
Yeah, so TikTok and Instagram history haunts hotels, and that's it for now.
Okay. Well,
Yeah.
everybody, go check out Miss Paige's page on
Yeah.
Instagram, History Haunts Hotels. Give her TikTok a follow, and just follow along with her. If you live in the general area, just hit her up. She's wanting to work with some people and kind of expand. So, Paige, I thank you for joining the show tonight.
This was so fun. Thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely. I know it was last minute, but it worked out.
It did work out.
All right.
Sometimes it always works out the best that way.
Absolutely. So Paige, thank you again, and everybody, we will catch you guys next time.